Welcome back, everybody. I've taken a deep breath. I'm more calm and relaxed. No Department of Transportation or buildings or Department of Health vehicles in sight, so I'm okay. We're going to give a quick shout out. Yeah, right. No. There's a stop work order downstairs. Actually, did you see it on the way in? No. Yeah, I was like, oh shit. Quick couple shout outs. Jamie Stamps, what's up? Jeffrey Hess in the hood. Elena, how are you? See you Sunday morning. And Amy Eastwood, all the way from Colorado. Amy used to live. Did you work on Amy Jim's house?
Sure.
Yeah. She told me last night. She sent me a message saying, "Please tell Nick I said hello." Yeah, great house. And I was actually hanging out with John and Belinda, the new owners.
Okay. Sure.
They were in the restaurant last night too, and Belinda was actually on the show. We did a pop-up show in Della after Thanksgiving. So you guys are awesome, Amy and Jim. But you were also.
So big shout out to Amy and Jim. Thanks for all the business and the referrals. Really appreciate it. Same to Jeff.
Have you seen the pictures of their new place?
I have not.
Oh my God,
I would love
immaculate. To. Yeah, if you go on Facebook, Amy keeps the stuff updated. Hello, Maria. So since I wasn't here for the opening and didn't do my quote of the day, we're gonna do it now. Just better late than never, right? I think you said that earlier. It's never too late, right? So this quote, I quote this gentleman often, Simon Sinek. Are you familiar with Simon Sinek? He's a motivational speaker and business kind of icon. He's great. You should check him out. There's a quote from his Instagram feed. Simon says, "Inspire. Trust is built on telling the truth, not telling people what they want to hear." I thought that was interesting because it talks about building, and you do a lot of building. And you probably often have to tell people straight up some things, like they're like, "I'd like to have this happen," and you try, and you're like, you know what? It ain't gonna happen the way you want, and that takes a lot of. We were talking about thick skin before dealing. So you deal with it on both sides,
sure.
Especially when you produce. Like I've had real estate agents come on and real estate brokers come on, and I think that's interesting because they're selling homes that are not theirs. They're, it's a different nuance. It's still a lot of pressure, but you're like you said,
we're in the thick of it. We're in there. We're with them. We see them morning and afternoon and evening, and we're working on in their home
and months. And it's this long,
a lot of stamina.
Yeah, and you're building often somebody's home that they
plan on emotion.
Being in absolutely. So much emotion tied to it. So the truth part is really interesting, and then also you're building homes. It was always fascinating about your company is that you're working on homes basically that you grew up in and around.
True.
Neighbors, people you probably known for decades.
Absolutely.
And then you live right there too. So there's you have to be totally transparent and honest, because if something shows up not being right, you're not like this invisible contractor that's
in my backyard.
Yeah, right. It's right there. And I get that a lot. And my partner was on last week and we were talking about that. And she was like, "Yeah, I don't love that so much, but me, I love it." I'm like, in the street, like if something didn't go right, I want to know, and I want to be able to fix it and take care of it.
And when you do a great job and you do it right, there's no concern at all.
Right.
It's always for the right reasons. But absolutely.
With construction and homes and everything, I mean, things happen over time. What's your main approach or advice for anybody listening? On just dealing with that, like being completely brutally honest with people, and then how do you respond when something didn't go the way somebody else expected? Like you've been in the profession for a while, you've done it, you've seen things, you kind of, you have more insight than somebody with just a vision that's like, "Oh, I want my place to look like this." And it's like, we're going to do our best. And then maybe Absolutely. At the end, after looking at it for a couple months, they're like, "Man, that's not exactly what I wanted," and negotiating that scenario or that situation.
So I'll come at it from a couple of ways. Yeah, so in many cases, you buy a home and some folks want to immediately get in there and start overhauling.
Yeah.
And some of my advice to them at times is, hey, maybe you want to live in the home for a little bit, but that's not always the case because you're selling one place to buy another. There's nowhere to go. So you need to kind of move in.
Yeah.
In that scenario, we want to spend as much time with them as we can before the renovation to have an impact on the design and the strategy so that we can, really alert them to some of the unknowns. But of course, it's all about capital and timing. So it's really just having that reserve. So should things go wrong, that there's...
Do you recommend to people? Because
Absolutely, of course.
That was the thing that got us with the build out at Della, is that so many things came down the pipe that were unforeseen. And it really started to eat away, even though, we had plenty of cash to do the job, there really came a point where it was like, wow, like, you know, they changed the filing for electric kitchens, like right when we were doing it. And all of a sudden it was like an extra $30,000 for an Ansel system. And we're like, what? So you recommend
we do
to have something aside.
Depending on the size of the renovation, you know, we're subject matter experts. I mean, I think we've done enough homes to kind of know what to expect in most cases. So we already see behind the wall, so to speak. So we're already factoring that in. It's just that.
Do you know anything about those really? I've talked to a couple of friends that have bought places through that. And from the owner perspective, they enjoyed it. And when they were telling me about it, I was like, contractors are probably like, yo, this sucks. So do you, I mean,
I know how it works. I know the mechanics of it. So
any strong opinions on that, or?
It's not typically what I look for in a project.
It seems to be really binding and kind of limiting for the contractor in the most part. It gives the bank more control and it sides in the buyer's favor.
Yeah, there's just less flexibility, less creativity. But for me, it comes down to you know, we want to make sure that there's, you know, capital fluency on the project, that, you know, all parties, including myself, right? I have to come to the table with a capitalization to execute the project,
right? And
we want the same on the homeowner side, right? We want to be able to deliver the product. So we find those projects just take longer. There's been a lot more scrutiny on the finished product, but it's not a one size fits all.
Right. And that was the thing that I thought about with those loans, is that, you know, you're kind of, you're bound to a certain schedule with that.
Absolutely.
It's really inflexible. And then for you, getting this whole thing off the ground, what was the beginning process like in terms of, you know, we're talking about building a home, but building the business for you in terms of what did you have to do? What did you have to get in alignment? You know, not necessarily dollar amounts in terms of capital, but then licensing. Like there's a lot of stuff that, I mean, you're under the microscope big time, especially if you're building residential, right?
Heavy. So there's licensing, there's Department of Buildings licensing and registration, there's Department of Consumer Affairs, then there's other levels of site superintendent or construction super. But ultimately, it comes down to you need to have a highly capitalized structure. You need to have money to really enter this business. You need to have a lot of know-how, subject matter expertise. You should know how to also run a business.
Right.
That helps. And then, of course, you buy all the things that it takes to operate a company, like equipment and trucks and things of that nature. You rent a storefront potentially or operate from your home. But I think for me, it was a slower start than that. I had already been doing some buy and sell of real estate. And I started the company and just started off small and bought a truck and had a storefront in Park Slope and just started to ramp up from there. The problem we had was the ramp up happened pretty quickly. Right. You know, Brooklyn was exploding.
So were you all like trying to play catch up? It just was going expanding so fast.
We just expanded and we had to grow. And luckily at that time, there was a lot of labor in the market. We could hire pretty easily back then. I think today it's a lot more constrained. There's just a lot more happening in the city. Yeah. So it's harder today. But back in 2007, 8, 9, when we're hitting a recession, for us, we did very well those years because there were people on the sidelines waiting to work.
Yeah, and it seemed like, I mean, I know housing prices around here dipped a little bit, but
not so much.
Yeah, things kind of just kept churning where other markets in the country really took a hit, and like their entire neighborhoods left empty, especially that corner of Brooklyn. It was just kind of like, we're gonna just keep chugging along here.
It kept going. I mean, the budgets are changing today. I mean, so back in 2007, 8, 9, we had a lot of buyers coming in with just different budgets. And then at some point between 2009 and today, I mean, the home values went up and so did the renovation budgets. But now that people are buying at a higher price point, we're seeing the budgets come back a little bit, kind of equalizing to a lower max, just paying so much for the home. So maybe the age of the gut renovation is slowed a bit, but you know, renovating in place has picked up.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like every corner you turn, there's especially
the other thing that's changed in the market is there's just so many more people working from home today.
Yeah.
right? So it's probably good for restaurants as well, right? So maybe the lunch crowd, maybe, I don't know.
I was thinking that when I was stuck in the cab on the way here, actually, just looking around at what, everything I was passing by, because we were going slowly. No, there's been a big pullback. It affected a lot of service industry and retail, where when people are working from home, they're not out going to places as much. They're not going shopping on their way, to and from their office or to the train or whatever. And then that also affects the service side. So retail took the biggest hit. So it kind of was happening at the same time when companies like Amazon were on the rise, and people were starting to work from home more. Retail just went
the other way,
and that affected service in a big way, because a lot of service places benefit from people being out shopping. They're already spending money, they're losing time, and like, I don't have time to cook, so they come in and they just get some food, or they sit down and eat. So the whole thing was like a recoil for the service industry, and not just in the U.S. It's happening globally, especially in like places like London. They talk, the people I listen to there say the same thing, where just people go out less more. Now delivery is picked up. If you have a delivery centric restaurant, or people are just opening restaurants for delivery
just
now,
for that,
they're doing okay. It affected us a little bit. We're in a very niche market. So, geographically, but also just the style of food and service and the ambiance of the place. It's just a different kind of thing. So it affected us, but not as bad. I mean, hundreds of restaurants closed last year, right around New Year's in New York City, some big ones. We weren't affected like that, fortunately.
Thankfully,
but, just like everything else, like you're, cab ride, you adjust.
It's helped us a bit. I mean, it's people are spending more time at home, right?
Yeah,
so working from home,
and they want it to look a certain way.
It needs to function a certain way.
It's funny. I'm never at home, so I kind of don't care. I'm just like, I come in and there's like toys and clothes and stuff everywhere. I'm like, I got to go back to work.
Yeah, where you can, you want to, have the right office space.
Yeah.
So his and hers offices are pretty cool today.
Oh wow! All right, didn't see that coming.
But it's a good thing.
Cool. We're going to take one more short break. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web.